Hi there and welcome. Today's going to be a lot of fun, mixing it up a little, and I am answering your questions. So a couple weeks ago, I asked for some submissions, questions, ask me anything kind of style, and I have 8 questions that I'm going to answer today in the episode. So there were a few extras. Maybe we'll do a follow-up, but if you're listening to this and they spark a question that you would like me to answer, send it my way. Either send me an email, send me a DM on Instagram, however, call me, beat me if you want to reach me. And I would be happy to add it to the list for the next episode. Thanks for being here. Let's jump in. This is the Jamie on Purpose show, and I am Jamie. This show is for the professional young woman who is ambitious and aspirational and wants to make the world a better place. We'll chat all things professional and personal development along our journey to being tomorrow's world-changing CEOs, government officials, and community leaders. Thanks for being here. All right, up first, question number 1. What is the best advice you've been given in your career? So I have a funny answer and a real answer. Both of them are real. But the first one is always use a mouse in PowerPoint and never use a mouse in Excel. So that is a very legitimate tip of the trade. I don't think that's what the phrase is, but you know what I mean. It is. It has helped me plenty of times to try to not use a mouse in Excel and never try to do PowerPoint without a mouse. It makes your life a lot easier. The real answer for this one is that no one will advocate for you more than you will. No one is as invested in your career as you are. So while, yes, it is very important for you to build relationships with people who are able to advocate for you in the rooms that you're not in and to develop relationships with mentors and that sort of thing, it is up to you to create the career that you want. And it's up to you to advocate for the kind of work that you're interested in and what you want to do. And it is your responsibility to create the career that you want and that will be happy and fulfilling to you. And there's a couple reasons why this is so powerful to me. The first is, it's true. Every person is more concerned with themselves and with their own career than they can ever be for you. So you can't rely on other people to care as much as you do. So you got to care a lot and you got to convince other people to care. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to be in charge of your career. The other reason why this resonates so much with me is because no one else knows what you want unless you tell them. So you are the only one who can make your best decision. You are the only one who knows what's going to be interesting to you and what kind of work you want to do and what kind of projects you want to be on. If you want to take an extra online course or something to begin to expand your skills, you are the only one who knows that. So you're the only one who's in the position to ask for that. And so it's up to you to seek out that life and that career that you want and that you think would be really interesting and fulfilling. So there's the answer to that question. All right, so second question. How do I know what kind of job to pursue? I'm not sure what I want to do. Oh, that's a good one. Because I think that if not everyone is feeling this way right at this moment, we have all felt this way at some point in our careers. Because there are so many opportunities out there, so many things that we could be doing, and yet we feel really uncertain about what should I be doing, what makes the most sense, all of those sorts of things. So maybe the first thing to acknowledge is you are not alone. This is a totally normal thing to be thinking about and feeling. And even if you do decide, quote unquote, what you want to do in a couple years, in 5 years, in 10 years, you might end up back here. So that's totally normal to grow and evolve and continue to learn more about what you want to do and what makes you happy. So here's what I say to the actual question. Follow your curiosity. So there's a lot of, Pinterest-worthy quotes that say, follow your passion and that sort of thing. But recently I heard someone rephrase it as, follow your curiosity. Like, what makes you kind of perk up and say, I'd like to learn more about that, and do some research. Maybe watch some YouTube videos, maybe go on Udemy or one of the online courses to begin to learn more about this thing that you think sounds interesting. And then, kind of continue to follow that path. Is there a way to get paid for that? Is that an industry? And if it sounds kind of interesting to you, then that's a good place to start. Another consideration would be, where can you go that would build your network? So if you are not certain that a particular job is going to be exactly what you want it to be, but you're going to be around a whole bunch of really smart people who are driven by the same things that drive you, that's a really good community to be around. And so can you go into a job with the intent to build your network and maybe leverage that to find a next opportunity? Kind of going back to more of the mindset part of this question, it is really important that you recognize ahead of time that a job likely won't be perfect. And especially if you're early in your career, like, of course, what we literally all dream of, landing our dream job right out of college. And to be honest, I thought I had landed my dream job right out of college. And then I got to it and I was like, oh, wait, this isn't it. Surprise. And I still had a really good experience there and I learned a whole lot. But it wasn't my dream job. And that felt disappointing at the time because I was like, oh, I really thought that this was going to be perfect and I was going to stay here forever and all of that stuff. But I wish that someone had helped me set my expectations better to be like, it's probably not going to be perfect right out of the gate. Like, most likely will not be perfect. But is it directionally correct? Are there pieces from this that you do like? And is it, following your curiosity to build up some skill set? Is it building out your network? So just kind of thinking about it in that way, like maybe this isn't my final step. Maybe I won't stay in this job forever, but taking a step towards something that is going to be good and will pay the bills. That's a very important part of this whole equation is you have a job to make money in some way, shape, or form. Yes, it can also be about finding fulfillment, but it's also about paying the bills. So that's important. And then also remember, jobs are constantly evolving. So some of the jobs that are available today did not exist 10 years ago. And if you mentioned them 20 years ago, people would look at you like you had grown a second head. So it's like, if you're trying to plot out 10 years ahead, there's a lot that can change in 10 years. And so staying open and following that curiosity is going to be your best bet. Also, with figuring out what kind of job it is going to make you happy and fulfilled and all of those sorts of things, I highly recommend building out your core values. So if you go to jamieonpurpose.com/3, that's the episode that I did on core values. And on the website, you can get the download to create what I call your blueprint. And that takes your core values. So it walks you through defining your core values. And then you map them over to some key pieces of your life. And one of them is your career. So it says, how would this core value show up in my career. And so that kind of gives you a sense of where you want to start looking for a job. Like those, I almost call them like meta parts, like metadata about the job. Is these are the things that I want to accomplish or feel or have fulfilled in a job. And then you can start looking for the actual roles that meet that criteria. Number 3, what sort of skills are most important in today's virtual world? Number 1 is self-awareness. So this is true of any professional setting, is you want to be self-aware. How are you presenting yourself? How do you look? How do you sound? How are your deliverables or whatever it is that you're building for your job? All of that is very, very important. And it looks different in a virtual setting. So I did an episode on virtual meeting etiquette that I cover this in depth. But things like recognizing if your sound quality is good on virtual meetings, recognizing, how you're showing up. Most of us are working from home now. So are you in your pajama top, or did you actually brush your hair a little bit today? I don't ever brush my hair, but that's a curly hair thing. So, things like that, being self-aware, still showing up for work, is a really key part of being a successful professional in the virtual world. Another part to this, in my notes, I have not being too cool for school. And the part of this that applies is we're all still social creatures, and people are trying their hardest to replicate social interaction in a virtual world. So things like the Zoom happy hours and the remote trivia and all of that, it's really easy to kind of roll your eyes and be like, another one? Like, this is so lame. I don't really want to show up. Show up. Be there. Try to connect with people. Try to play along. And you'll be surprised at how much better you feel about connecting with people in that way. And it takes a little bit of, I don't want to say dropping the ego, but not being too cool for school to get the benefit of that. And there's a very good chance that the person organizing it knows that it's probably a little bit cheesy or it feels a little bit forced. So help them out and be part of that in a non-virtual world, in a world where we all hang out together in real life. Those social interactions are so key to your professional success. Being able to build relationships with your teams and with your managers and mentors and all of that is really, really vital to your success as a professional. And so you need to try your hardest to replicate that in a virtual world, at least until we can get back to the true social stuff. The third one is ask for help or ask for time to talk to somebody. Not like a therapist, although if you want to talk to a therapist, I highly recommend that. But the biggest gap that I have felt going from working in an office altogether to being virtual is it is next to impossible to have a drop-in conversation with people and just kind of debrief after a meeting or whiteboard through a solution together or talk through something that you're like, I don't know if this is a thing, but it could be a thing. Those are really hard to come by in a virtual world. And it can feel kind of awkward or forced to say, hey, can we set up a call to talk through this thing that's not it doesn't feel worthy of a full-on meeting, like a virtual meeting with a calendar invite and the whole deal. But you do still need those in-between touch points to talk through things. So I would say don't be afraid to ask for those, even if it's hey, can you jump on a call really quick? Or hey, I need 10 minutes of your time today to chat through this one thing that I'm working on. Work on building up that skill set and ask for help in that way, so that you aren't staying stuck, especially, or you don't get off on the wrong track. Like if you feel that little instinct say, I'm not totally sure, but like, I don't want to bother the other person and like get them on a call and do the whole thing. Just ask. You can always ask, and do a phone call. If they can't do that, maybe it's a Slack back and forth or whatever messaging system you're using, to ask for help and have, again, creating the virtual equivalent of the just, rolling your chair over to their desk and saying, hey, can you help me with this for a minute? Question number 4 is totally different, which I really liked. What kind of gear are you using for your podcasts and videos? So glad you asked. So the microphone that I'm using is the Blue Yeti USB mic, so it's connected in. And then I am using the Canon R6 as the camera. So if you're watching this on YouTube, then you get to see the prettiness that it is. So the camera was a heck of a splurge. Certainly a quarantine purchase that I saved up for a while. I love taking photos, so it has multiple uses, but I did get the R6. It is Canon's one of their 2 brand new mirrorless full frame cameras. I have the RF 35 1.8 lens on it, so got a nice shallow depth of field. So if you're watching it, you get the nice blurry background back there. If you're just listening, then maybe go look at this part of the video. It's quite pretty from a photography perspective. More gear questions. So I am using Anchor.fm to host and disseminate the actual podcast itself, and then just YouTube for the videos. My website is a Squarespace website, which I don't love, but I haven't really found anything else to use in place of it. So if you go look at show notes and that sort of thing, JamieOnPurpose.com is a Squarespace website. And I am also still trying to find the best way to do the sound and the video. I tried to set up Zoom or like another thing, and my camera wouldn't work with it. And so I'm still just recording on my camera, recording with GarageBand for the sound, and then merging them together and editing in iMovie, and then pull it out to Anchor and pull it out, just the audio out to Anchor, and then the video and the audio up to YouTube, and then link them both into my website. So there you go. I really liked Anchor so far. It's been really good. Some of the others I think are good if you have guests or if you have multiple hosts, co-hosts. So one day when I'm doing interviews and have guests on the show, then I'll have to try out one of those. But for now, that's what I'm using. Number 5, what's the best way to connect with male coworkers? This is a fantastic question. So I have worked in the tech industry for a while, and I also work a lot with leadership and executive teams and that sort of thing. So both of those tend to be very, very male. I want to say 90% of the people that I have worked with in my professional career have been men. And, I go to my anecdote of my very first day, my very first project, first day of real work in the real world. We all went out to a team lunch. It was a team of 20. I was the only woman at a big table full of guys, and the lunch conversation was about facial hair. And I was like, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? And so what that experience taught me, not just the facial hair lunch, but having that first team be so, quite literally the only woman on a team of 20 guys, for, I want to say like 6 months before another woman joined the team. I got my most valuable lesson there, and that is on the first day that I walked in there, it was a team of 20 guys. By the first month, it was, oh, there's Charlie and Will and Chase, and like I knew the individual people, and that made it, well, yes, I mean, they were still dudes, but instead of it being like, oh, that's a bunch of dudes, it was like, oh no, these are my teammates who I know their names, I know about them, I know, their hobbies and the food that they like or don't like, and those sorts of things. So that is my tip, is to get to know them as people, and really look for places where you do have things in common with them. So I'm not going to bond with them over facial hair things. I'm not a sports person, which if I was a sports person, then that would probably make my life easier, but I'm not. But I do still work with these people. We do still have common interests and common activities and common events and that sort of thing. So I was really intentional about looking for where we do have things in common, or even just like learning like quirky things about them, like which restaurant is their favorite, or like what do they have going on at home, what are their kids' names, those sorts of things. And then again, that helps them become people and not just another guy on the team. It's not perfect. On my most recent project, I am working with a lot of men, almost exclusively. And most of the time I don't realize it because of what I just described. Like these are unique people to me. And so I know that they are guys, but I don't think about it a ton. But sometimes I do recognize it. And when I do, a lot of times I feel a lot of pride. And I'm like, heck yeah, like I'm the only woman here doing the thing. Yeah, girl power. And then sometimes it just sucks. Like sometimes it just feels very much like I don't belong here. I don't fit in. I wonder if they see me as credible. Like me wondering about their perception of me makes me question my perception of myself. And so it's hard. It's absolutely hard. I don't have an answer or a solution to that. What has been helpful on days like that is to connect with the other women that I know who are in similar situations, and just kind of commiserate with them and be like, hey, this was, a hard day. So being able to connect back with those women is helpful on the hard days. But to have fewer hard days, I try to not get caught up too much in that I'm the only or one of the few. And instead try to look at them as individual, unique people who have their own quirks and cool things and all of that good stuff. Number 6, what books have changed your life? Very good question. And I had a very long list as my response. So I have pared it down. I just had to brutally cut some, and I probably missed some, but here is the initial list. Mindset by Carol Dweck. So that one talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset and why you want to have a growth mindset and what that means. Very, very good. High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. This is my once a year read. It talks through the habits that are consistent across all high performance people, all people who are highly performant I don't know what I'm trying to say. Really good people who are at the top of their fields. They're kicking ass, taking names, all of that stuff. And it's always really fantastic. I love reading it because it gets me really energized and rededicated to these habits. And every time I read it, so far, at least in the 3 or 4 times that I've read it, I take away something different because I've been at different points in my life. And so I've had different takeaways on, oh, this is the habit that I need to double down on, or this is the one that is really keeping me going right now. So I have loved that book. I don't love the audiobook, which I'm a big audiobook person in general, but this one is one, get the ebook, get the physical book. It's a good one. Next one, So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. This one hurt my ego a little bit, which is a good thing. And I'm going to do a whole episode on like a success mindset. And so I'm going to talk about mindset and this one and a couple others. But it has really shaped the way that I think about passion and creating a dream career, and also earning a dream career. So am I good enough to be in a place where I should deserve a dream career and such a fantastic, fulfilling job and all of that stuff. So it's a really interesting one. Next is Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. Oh, Rachel. She has a very controversial persona for very valid reasons. She has done things that I don't always agree with, which is totally fine. Like, that's part of, learning and developing our own lives, is we can take what we like from people and leave the rest. This book was eye-opening to me. It almost feels like the intro to personal development. So if you haven't done a lot of personal development or therapy or anything like that, or if you read Untamed by Glennon Doyle and you didn't really get it, come back and read Girl Wash Your Face. It's the 19-ish, 20, something like that chapters. And it's all based on the lies that she used to tell herself and how she realized that they weren't serving her anymore, or they were lies. And so this is what she did. It's got a Christian flavor to it. It's got a lot of privilege, got a lot of white, wealthy privilege to it. And there's a reason that it has been a mega success that it has been. There's some good nuggets in there. So read it with a grain of salt. But it did change my life. There were a lot of things in it that I was like, holy shit, this is me too. Like, I believe this and I shouldn't. And so it was kind of like, that sounds very weird, but awakening the kind of the subconscious stories that we tell ourselves, to say, like, kind of call them out on their bullshit. So that was one of them. Next is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Elizabeth Gilbert herself is just magic. So listen to everything, or read everything that she has ever written. Listen to every word she has ever spoken. She is magical. This one's all about creativity, what it means to be a creative person, to create, how to think about your creations. It's really good. The next one is Mismatch by Kat Holmes. So switching it up a little bit from the personal development books, this one is very much applicable to my day job, my role in technology, and it is all about inclusive design. So how do we do product design in a way that is inclusive to end users, in all of the variety of diversity? It inspired my own. I did a it's called a FinFest talk for my former company. It was TED Talk style, where I talked about this concept of what does it mean to be inclusive in our technology designs and in the implementation of technology. So how does, diversity and inclusion show up in technology, and what can we as technologists do to make the world more equitable? Some honorable mentions here. Both of these are fiction, but they for sure had the same kind of impact. The Awakening by Kate Chopin. I read this one in high school and have read it a couple of times, more than that, several times since then. And there's the quote in there which inspired my tattoo, my first tattoo. I have a jacket on, so you can't see it, but the quote is, "The bird that would soar above the level plane of tradition and prejudice must have strong wings." So if you see any pictures or another video of my tattoo, it is the line, which is the level plane, and then the bird soaring above it. So really love that book. It's a good one. Also honorable mention, fiction, is Welcome to the Monkey House by Kurt Vonnegut. And somebody asked me the other day, if you could only have one book to read for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it would be this book. It's actually a collection of short stories, and they're all like satire, dystopian, futuristic, social commentary kind of things. But oh my gosh, like they're so just engaging, and they make you think. And yeah, I'm not doing a very good job of describing how impactful they have been to read these books. Harrison Bergeron, read these stories. Harrison Bergeron was the first one that I read, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh. From both the story perspective and the genre, like writing short stories and reading short stories, that was new to me. And that you can pack that much punch into a short story, it's crazy. So really like that one. And then, so I felt like I was like looking through this list, and I was like, I'm missing some of my very favorite books. But then I also remembered that some of my favorite books, I've also watched their TED Talks, and you can get a lot of the goodness out of the book in the TED Talk. So here's the 3 TED Talks to go watch if you want to know the ones that changed my life. Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. I mean, read everything she's ever written. Go listen to her podcast, the whole deal. But that first TED Talk is stellar. Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Also very, very interesting. I've also read the book. He covers almost everything in the TED Talk that I got from the book, so just watch the talk. And then Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. So it's also really, really good. I do have the book up there somewhere. But the TED Talk gives you a really good overview of what she's all about. And it's kind of credited to giving to starting this wave of feminism that's all about women in the workplace. So if you're here and hanging out with me to talk about being a woman in the workplace and being a female leader, that's almost like required reading or watching. All right. The next one here was kind of a combo. So it was, how do you approach goal setting, and what goals do you have in 2021? And I read this and I was like, well, I don't have my 2021 goals set yet. So the approach is actually very valid, because I was like, well, I need to think about how I would answer this question, how I would be setting my goals. So I have a few different ways that I go about this, and they each have merit. They each kind of bring up different ways of thinking about what I want the next year to look like. So the first place that I start is always my values. So I go through those 5 and I see what are ways that I can put some goals around these values to live them out fully. And there's goals that you can accomplish, and then there's goals that are more like practices. So those are kind of the two different ways that I will think about my values. One of my values is family. So in recent years, I've had a goal that is every opportunity that I have to travel to see my family, I take it, regardless of time or money or travel or any of that sort of thing. The worldwide pandemic is a valid consideration that has certainly paused some things, but where it makes sense and is safe and is allowable by local policies, then I will take that. And that's more of like a practice, not necessarily like a goal that you check off, but that's one way that I think about them. The next is, it's an acronym that is part of positive psychology, and it is like the science of well-being. So, you can be like happy, but if you are truly a like well-rounded, like fulfilled human, then there's these 6 different elements that have to be fulfilled. And the acronym is PermaV. So P is positive emotion, E is engagement, R is relationships, M is meaning, A is achievement, and V is vitality. So that's another lens where I'll go through that and say like, okay, what are ways that I can create more engagement or meaning, or how can I really value or really create a goal around relationships this year, that sort of thing. So I have health as one of my values, my personal values, and vitality as part of PermaV. So I normally end up with something on my list that has to do with my physical health. I'm pretty sure this year, so this also feels like an important thing to say, I have no idea what my 2020 goals were, which is very uncharacteristic of me. I know I wrote them down somewhere, and I literally can't find them. And I'm pretty sure that I don't remember, like I did not meet them, I don't think. I remember 3 of them. One of them was I wanted to buy a new car, which I did. The second one was I wanted to get a new job, which I also did. And then the third one was I wanted to be first draft complete on my book, which I did not do. So I do have a book that I've been working on. It is not first draft complete because I've spent a lot of time doing this sort of thing. So, I also wanted to do something like last year I did my yoga teacher training. I wanted to do something similar to that. I think I wanted to do like run a half marathon, what might have been, or do a triathlon, sprint, something not like crazy, but something physical that everything got canceled. So that didn't happen. So hopefully, here's to hoping that 2021 is more predictable, at least, than 20 has been, so that I can set some goals that actually have a chance of making it. Which brings me to the third point that I had on my notes, which was build off of last year's. So normally, that is somewhere that I start. So I looked at my 2019 goals to build out my 2020 goals. And I'm like, okay, how can I take these one step further? What does that look like? Are these things that I want to continue building? This year, that's going to be harder because I wrote them down on a piece of paper or something somewhere, and I don't know where they were. I'm pretty sure I also had like travel goals on there because in 2019, I wanted to go to Seattle, Austin, and Italy, and I did all 3 of those. And this year it was supposed to be Chicago, maybe Oklahoma, or a driving distance, and France. And we did get Oklahoma, but we did not go to the other places. So who knows if 21 will be open for travel goals or not. And then the final way that I approach goal setting is I have done a practice before. It's actually a Rachel Hollis inspired activity exercise thing where I project 10 years in the future. So it's a full-on meditation. I'm sure you could Google it to find it if you want to do it, where you envision your life 10 years from now. So where do you want to live? What do you want to be doing for a job? What kind of car do you want to drive? What do you want your relationships to look like? There's all these questions, and you're just supposed to sit there and kind of dream up this life. And then open your eyes, write it all down. So actually right here, if you're watching the video, you see me pointing, but otherwise, on the wall that I am looking at, I have the paper where I wrote down where I want to be in 10 years, and what I want my life to look like. And I'm looking at them, and they are in my line of sight every day. And it was at least 2 years ago that I did this, because the top of it says me in 10 years at the age of 33. So that was at least 2 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when I did this, but it holds up. And so I leave it here. And so I look at it and, let me see if I can read one. I choose clothing and accessories that are timeless and sustainably created, not fast fashion or too trendy. I am recognized as an advocate for women and girls. I regularly journal and document my life. I give and receive exceptional love. I have a team of health professionals I trust, including my doctor, dentist, dermatologist, etc. I am known for giving great gifts. I take time each day to connect with people I care about, friends, family, partner. I actively plan and host family and friend get-togethers. I speak to audiences to share wisdom and experiences. I have lots of them. There's lots and lots of them up there. And so when I'm looking at my yearly goals, I'll take this 10-year vision, which is now 8 years away, and say, what is a 1/10 slice of that? How can I get 1/10 of the way there? And some of them are practices, like I mentioned earlier. So it's more like I give and receive exceptional love. So that's not something that I'll ever check off the box, right? But how can I make that as part of my this year goal to show up exceptionally for the people that I love? So that's my last one. And I will do, when I sit down to do my 2021 goals, which will probably be in about a month-ish. I think I said this, today's November 22nd that I'm recording this. So still a little early to have those, but these are the different ways that I will look at how I will find the topic areas for my goals. And then when it comes to actually setting them, again, we have like the practice ones. These are the things that I want to regularly do. And then I'll have specific things that I like to check off, because I am an Enneagram 3 at the end of the day, and I really like to check things off. So I will have some specific things probably around, I want to hit 1,000 active listeners on the podcast. Who knows? Something like that. But a lot of times I do try to stay away from things that I need other people for. So it's things that I can do that I know I will be proud of. So maybe it's more, if I want to do one around the podcast, it is I stick to releasing weekly original content throughout the year. Or I get really good at batching all of my content or something like that, so that it's not like based on I need 1,000 people to decide that this is interesting enough to be part of it for me to feel like it's worth it, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe that this is a worthy cause to spend my time and energy on. So a little bit of a paradigm there. Okay, final question. What's your personal career plan, and how did you create it? So when I first read this, my immediate reaction was like imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't have a career plan. And really it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the person who asked the question of how do I know what job to do? Like, if I don't know what I want to do, like, how do I figure that out? And so as much of I don't want to say control freak, but as much of the kind of person that I am who wants to have a plan and a vision and a path, I have really done a lot of work to let go of a structured timeline for what it is that I want to do. And I'm really trying to follow my curiosity, follow the opportunities that are presented to me, do things on the side that I think are interesting, that has been really fulfilling for me, and just see what happens. But I'm also a dreamer for sure. And I do have a vision of where I want to go. And the biggest piece of it is the legacy and community value that I have. So a while ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, I did the exercise where you write your eulogy. Like it's to help you kind of like orient to your life and what you want to do and where you want to go and what you would want people to say at your funeral, which is morbid, but also super insightful. And for me, my main takeaway in doing that exercise was this phrase of my life's work. Like when I wrote my eulogy, it was Jamie dedicated her life to this, and Jamie's life work of this thing. And that really speaks to that I want to dedicate my life truly towards something that is going to make the world a better place. And I want it to be a creation, a full-on dedication to a cause and a future vision. And that is distinct from work-life balance. So work-life balance to me, in this scenario where we're contrasting the two, that is, I go to a job that is interesting, makes me happy, pays the bills. I'm content in it. I, am somewhat fulfilled with that. And instead it is this job that I do is my life. It is a pillar of what I stand for and what I champion. And then I also have my family and my friends and all of that. That's part of my life. But kind of that distinction was really important to me. And so that is what I will want for my life. That is a big part of my career plan. And in order to get to that, what I see right now is creating content, creating thought leadership to help others gain clarity and give them the tools that they need to live happy and fulfilling lives. So the analogy that I have thought of is it's like a garden, right? So if we're all hanging out in like a garden area and every person is tending to their own garden, I want to be the one handing out the gardening tools and helping you to create your own garden that's going to make you really happy and fulfilled. And there are different types of gardens and they'll grow different kinds of things. And there's no right way or wrong way. We need all the gardens. And so that makes me very happy and energized. And I would love to truly dedicate my life to that. And that is my intention. That's where I'm going, at least. And the timeline is fuzzy for sure. I'd also like to write a book. I'm a words person. I'm a book person, and continue to grow this community in pursuit of creating the next generation of women leaders. So that's, I don't know if that's really an answer to your question. How did you create it? Again, I go back to kind of the 10-year vision. So 10 years out, where do I want to be? How do I want to make money? That sort of thing. And then really doing that eulogy exercise was very, very insightful to me. And then just remembering that things are going to change. One of the biggest industries right now are online courses. And those didn't exist 15 years ago. Like that kind of concept of, Kajabi, where you log on and have access to an online course those have changed my life. Though I have learned so much. They're my favorite way to learn online. Those aren't around. And so where are we going to be in 10 years, in 15 years, to have that be someone's job? So, I'm kind of making it up as I go, following my curiosities, following what's interesting, taking care of my finances in the process, to make sure that I don't, run out of money, which would be important. Okay, well, this was super fun. I loved answering these questions, mixed it up for sure. So thank you so much again for sending in the questions. I'll do another one of these at some point soon. So if you have more questions, send them my way and I'll be happy to answer them. Again, thank you so much for being here and I'll see you next time.